When thousands of players ask for a reset button, the real story isn't the button. It's why they want one. And honestly, this wasn't something I thought much about at first. Every time somebody asks for hero reset, hero star reset, medal refund, whatever version of it want to call it, I just assume it was just usual thing. Players want their resource back. Makes sense. Discussion over. But then I start paying attention to the actual players asking for it. And that's where the things get weird. Because they weren't all regretting the same heroes. One player wanted to reset Kinara. Another player wanted to reset Old Cavalry Hero. Another player wanted to reset a hero that still get used till these days. And I personally wanted to reset Kinara. It was like 5-4-3-4, something like this. And I reset my Kinara. And I reset two more heroes like Nico. I also reset Nico, my poor Nico, because I don't plan to play with marksmans. So even I'm something like a decision. I reset marksmans. Some players may reset old cavalry heroes, and another want to reset some heroes that we still use till these days. And that's what confused me, because if everybody's regretting different heroes, then maybe the hero isn't actually the problem. And honestly, that's where this whole thing starts getting interesting for me, because if the hero isn't the problem, then what it is. When I first started playing Call of Dragons, I thought regret come from making back investments. And boy, I'm playing this game for like whole eternity. How much days? 1.1k days. 1162 days playing this game. And yeah, at the beginning, I was thinking about the bad investments. Maybe the bad investments is the place where the regret come from. That seems obvious. You invest in bad hero, the hero become weaker, you regret it. Simple. But the more reports I look at and the more players I talk to, the less that explanation actually work. Because some of the heroes people regret aren't that bad. Some of them are still completely usable. Some of them still appear in the fights, and some of them still help accounts today. So then I had a different question. If those heroes still work, why does somebody want to regret it? And why this regret exists at the first place? Then I think I found the answer. A lot of players don't regret the hero, they regret the medals. And those are very different things, because when players look at an old investment, they're usually not thinking this hero is useless. They're thinking, what can I do with those medals today if I didn't just spend it over specific hero? And I still these days I have some regrets over some heroes that I spent medals on them, and I really want to get my medals back, but it's not possible at the end of the day. But anyway, and honestly, that's much more painful thought. What I can do with those medals if I had them. Because now you're not comparing a hero to another hero, you're comparing a past version of your account to the future version you wish you had. And that's a comparison nobody can win. This reminds me of something I've been seeing happening over and over. Two players can make the exact same investments and feel completely different about it later. I've been seeing this happening. One player invests heavily into a hero, years later they're completely fine with it. Another player makes almost the exact same investments, years later they're asking for reset every month. Same hero, similar investments, completely different reaction. That should happen if hero strange is the real issue. So then I start wondering, what are those players seeing differently? Why one of the player want to reset specific hero, the other one is completely happy with the same hero? Then I noticed something. The players with the least regret usually expect the game to change. That sounds simple, but I think it's huge difference. They never expect their hero to stay on top forever. They never expect the meta to freeze. They never expect future heroes to stop arriving. The investment was I'm building the best hero. The investment wasn't I'm building the best hero forever. The investment was I'm building the best option I have right now. And those mindsets lead to completely different outcome. Then things got even more interesting because I start asking myself whether power creep is actually the thing people are fighting. Because let's be honest, I mean, right now we're having Generation 5 mages arriving in Call of Dragons. You have 5 legions, you have Generation 5 mages, you also have different generations of overall heroes that can still, be extremely good with the rest of your mages. So you're having now way too many heroes. More heroes that you can fit in 5 legions if you basically invest in all of the mages. So now people want to get back from the heroes that they already they don't use to invest in the heroes that are going to come. I mean, at one point we was going to actually, face this power creep. And is it actually what's making people fighting over it? And honestly, I'm not convinced because I started asking myself whether power creep is actually the thing people are fighting. And honestly, I'm not convinced because if power creep was the entire problem, everybody won't reset. But that's not what happened. Some players accept that newer heroes appear. Some players don't. Some players moved on them immediately. Some players spent months frustrated by old decisions. And that's when I realized something. Maybe the biggest source of regret isn't the power creep. Maybe it's expectations. Think about it. If you expect your hero to remain amazing forever, you are almost guaranteed to be disappointed. But if you expect the game to evolve, then a future replacement isn't actually a betrayal. It's just part from the game. And honestly, I think that's changed how you experience progression a lot. Then I start thinking about something that surprised me. If Call of Dragons added full hero reset tomorrow, what it actually solve the problem? At first, my answer was yes, but the game still added. I mean, I reset some of my heroes. I reset my Kinara. I reset my Nico. I get my tokens, and I make my Gorsh awakened. I make my Skogul awakened. These two heroes was never awakened, but I make them awakened because of this. So at first, yeah, it was actually solving something. But yeah, at first my answer was yes, of course it won't. Everybody gets their resource back. Everybody is happy. Problem solved. But the longer I thought about it, the less sure I become. Because 6 months later, we do be probably having the exact same conversation. New heroes, new meta, new investments, new regrets, new reset request. And that's when I realized something. The reset button might not actually solve the thing players are struggling with. Because the real problem isn't that the player made a bad decision. Most of those decisions made perfect sense at the time. The real problem is that the players are judging old decisions using information they didn't have when they made them. And honestly, that's a pretty difficult standard. Imagine going back 2 years and expect yourself to know every future hero release, every future meta, every future season. Nobody can do that. I learned this lesson the hard way myself. There are definitely investments I would make different today. I think almost every long-term player has a list like that. But when I look back, most of those decisions weren't stupid. Most of them were reasonable. The game just changed, and sometimes I think players forget that. That's why I think the hero reset discussion is much bigger than it looks. Because it's not really about hero reset. It's not really about medals. And honestly, I don't ever think it's really about the power creep. I think it's about how players deals with changes. It's about how we react when the account we want built today look different from the account we built years ago. And maybe that's why so many players ask for a reset button. Not because the hero was bad, but because they can finally see paths they couldn't see back then. I'm curious, what do you think? If Call of Dragons added a full hero reset tomorrow, which heroes would you reset first? And more importantly, would that actually solve your biggest regret? Or would a new one eventually replace it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway guys, that is for this video. Huge thank you to all channel members for supporting the channel. If you do like to support the channel as well, you can check out the join button below. Members get early access to videos, exclusive content, member shoutouts, and Warwords member can reach me out directly for strategy and account advices. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one.